Hello and welcome back to Tapes of the Dead. So, a few days ago I watched The House's October Built. I've been hearing about this movie for quite a few years, and this one company just recently put it out on VHS, so I said, it's probably about time I check these two movies out. So the film evolves around this group of friends, and they go on a whole tour of the United States, going to all these different haunts. It's like 5 or 6 days leading up to Halloween. They're going on this big road trip, and it's kind of like a found footage film, which normally I hate. There's very few found footage films I like, and this kind of reminded me why I don't like found footage. The fucking editing was immediately giving me a headache. It's just a bunch of characters like screaming over each other, which a lot of the time it came off so fake. Like, a lot of the characters seem fake and just bad in this, even though they're like real people, which I'll touch on that later on. But it's just non-stop quick cuts. Like, you don't get more than 2 seconds of footage a lot of the time before it cuts to something else. And it's like I kept having to like squint my eyes and blink because it was just fucking with my head and my eyes so much it gave me a fucking headache. But while they're going to all these different haunts, the one guy is trying to get to something more extreme. So he's asking like all the people when they do interviews, which all the interview footage and the footage of the haunted houses is all real. The haunts were real, and the people they interviewed were real, and they didn't have any scripts for that. The only thing they had was like they had certain questions or like ideas of where they wanted to lead the interview, and that's it. And that's kind of what the most interesting part of this movie is like the history behind it, and just seeing like the real footage of haunts and stuff like that. Like, for me personally, I'm a really big person for Halloween. So this movie is just a great film to put you in that Halloween mood and get you wanting to go to different haunts. But as I was saying, the one guy is trying to look for something more and more extreme. And eventually, one of the people drops, oh, there's this one thing. It was like in Louisiana, it's like the blue something, the blue skeleton. Because the guy is also on a online forum message board, and they're also telling him like, oh, ask about the blue skeleton. It's like this traveling underground extreme haunt. So eventually they find their way in. They find these people who tell them, oh, go to this bar in the middle of bumfuck nowhere and ask for Mr. Giggles. And that's when it starts to actually get creepy. And the editing, there's like some longer scenes and some tension building and everything. They walk into this bar and there's like a weird couple slow dancing, and everyone's still in their like scare actor uniform and masks and makeup and everything. And this guy comes up just dancing, because they're like, oh, they're filming me, I'm going to put on a show, essentially. And then they put down the cameras, and they go out and talk, and stuff like that. And then two of the people actually pick up the camera, because they left their camera right on the table. And they corner Brandy, the only female of the group, in the women's bathroom. And that's when you kind of start to think, is this for real? Are they really going to, like, kill them? Or is this just part of the haunt? Then after that, it's Halloween night, and they go to Bourbon Street, because that's where they get 5 masks, 5 blue skeleton masks, and they're told to go to this, like, find the other blue skeleton, essentially, on Bourbon Street the night of Halloween, which they actually went to Bourbon Street and filmed on the night of Halloween, which is just really cool. It makes it that much more authentic. And then there eventually, the one guy, it's the country boy who raps, like, you don't get much characteristics of these characters, but the only one I can remember is that there's a guy who keeps saying, oh, I'm a country boy, and that he raps. It's the most random shit. It has no bearing on anything else, but they tried to inject some personality into at least one of these characters, pretty much. But he sees the guy wearing a blue hoodie and the blue skeleton mask, like his other friend Bobby, who is actually the director of this film, and he follows him into an alleyway, and then the guy turns left, and then the girl who wears the porcelain like baby doll mask, which is one of the actual more creepy and like the poster child for this film, she comes out of nowhere. He turns left and looks back, and then she runs up, and I swear that she stabs him in the shoulder. He falls to the ground, and then it's like cut footage, and then it's like some guy tells him like stick out his tongue, and it's like it feels like I'm pretty sure he got his tongue cut out. Although you find out later in the second film that he actually didn't get stabbed or get his tongue cut out. But I swear I saw the girl stab him with a knife at least. But anyways, they drag him off, and then I can't remember. I think they chloroform the other ones and then just drag them to the haunt location. But right around the alley scene, that's when I started getting actually invested in the film. It was like, well, this is kind of like disturbing. This is kind of freaking me out. I was like, I couldn't tell if they were actually going to kill them, if it was just part of the haunt. And that's one of my favorite things about this film is that, like, you know, like if you read the history of it, that there's like all the haunt footage, all the interviews with people are real. So you don't know if this is just another part of that, or if it's fabricated, or if they're gonna actually kill them, you know? And that's just kind of like the best part of this film. So eventually they get chased around in this haunt, and there's a part where early in the film they're like, oh, what's so more extreme? Like, instead of a chainsaw without the chain on it, they're gonna chase you around with a chainsaw with a chain on it. And that's actually what happens at one part. Like, there's a guy with a chainsaw trying to cut through the door, and then they get chased around. It's really dark. You don't really see shit. And then eventually they are all in coffins, and they're all getting buried alive. And especially the girl, she becomes known as Coffin Girl. And then the film just kind of ends. And at first, I was not a fan of this ending. I was like, well, that's just kind of dumb. The movie just finally gets interesting, and they're only chased around in the house where they take them for maybe 10, 15 minutes. No one is actually killed in any cool, unique way, and it's just left as this blank-ended, open-ended cliffhanger. And I was just not a big fan of that. But then I kind of like, the next day, I was like thinking about this film more and more, and I was like, you know what? I actually kind of do like that movie. It's like one of those films, like the more you think about it, and the more history you read on it, the more you appreciate it. Even if certain parts of it just stink, the more I really appreciate this film. And they made a part 2, so part 2 I'll be talking about tomorrow. So if you want to hear my thoughts on that, come by tomorrow. See you then.